Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marian Brush, Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. Today's episode of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast is the next in our mental health and wellness series and will focus on surviving the stress of the holidays. Our host is Mary Selden, Romeo Community Schools Director of Special Services. Our guests today are Kelsey Frazier and Ornella Shirkelly, two of our Romeo Community Schools District School Psychologists, and Amanda Russell, Romeo Middle School School Social Worker. I will now turn it over to Ms. Selden to lead the discussion.
It is my pleasure to be hosting this episode of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. After reviewing feedback in our last climate survey, parents asked for more resources on mental health and wellness strategies. Our goal is to continue to create more resources on those topics and other topics to help students, parents, and staff in our community. As always, if you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health concern that impacts your daily life, please call your doctor. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, please dial 988 for free confidential help 24/7 or call 911 for emergency help. Kelsey, Ornella, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about how to survive the holidays. Let's begin. The holidays, there's often so much to look forward to, spending time with friends and family. However, some people can also find that it's a very hard time that brings forth anxiety, complex emotions based on the pressure of extra expectations, possibly sensory issues, relationship complexities, extra expenses, or even family dynamics. What are some important things to remember when planning for a big holiday meal that you're hosting, or maybe even budgeting for some costs associated with the holiday? How can people plan and prepare on how to handle that stress?
I think one of the biggest areas is understanding where the stress is stemming from for you. So I think there's a lot of areas of stress. You know, it could be financial, it could be the pressure of expectations or time management, feeling like we can't get it done in time. So understanding where that stress is stemming from and then kind of breaking it apart and taking it, one step at a time. I feel like I stress out about, the finances and time management and how do I get it done in all this time? And then I feel like the pressure of expectation, making it perfect. And so during this time, I also relate it back to my students too, because I'm like, this is how they feel during the school year too, like that all of these stressors are coming in at them. And what do I do to cope throughout that time? So, just creating lists and prioritizing is the number one thing.
I know for me, I always feel the burden that I'm the leader with the making of the list, the doing of the tasks. And, whether it's my kids or my husband, they'll say, just tell me what we need to do. But then that takes a lot of effort to plan their plan as well. And so sometimes just trying to focus on communication for me is a big thing that I need to remember during the holidays. And then also the unrealistic expectations of I want everything to be perfect.
Yep.
But what my kids probably want the most is for me to be having fun and spending time with them, right?
Memories of it.
And so I don't think a lot of times kids remember all of the details, but they do remember the time you spend with them.
Exactly. And I think there's other resources that are now available that we didn't have in the past, when it comes to budgeting, instead of walking in the stores, you can have the shoppers do it for you. So you go to the parking lot instead of adding all those extra things that happen to get in your cart. So understanding the resources and tools that are now around is really important.
Amanda, what are some thoughts that you have?
I definitely agree that planning and budgeting for the holidays is really overwhelming. We do have this like societal pressure to create an extravagant, magical, over the top Christmas. Social media often amplifies this because we're seeing what everybody else is doing, and this family's doing Elf on the Shelf, and look what they did. So now I've got to do Elf on the Shelf, or it's not magical for my kid. And, breakfast with Santa, and all the Christmas lights and doing all the things. When really Christmas doesn't require extravagance. It's really the children they really treasure the time that they spent, like you said, with family and the feelings that they associate with the season. So if mom's super stressed out, that's probably not going to be a great feeling for the kids. But if mom is present and enjoying the activities that she's planning and doing, I know for myself, I do like a big cookie day, and every year I'm like, this sounds like a great idea. And then I have my nieces and nephews and, so 10 kids sitting in my kitchen decorating cookies. And I'm like, this was a horrible idea. Why did I do this? So trying to not be stressed with that and then just enjoying the moment is huge.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point about the comparison. I think we often, especially with social media, like you said, we often are looking at other families and comparing, oh, you did this, I need to do this, or the kids get that. Like, it's all those things that, bring on those feelings of guilt, like I'm not doing enough, I want it to be everything. When in reality, comparison is the thief of reality, or like of your now. So kind of training your brain to just be in the now, and loosen up a little bit when it comes to all those experiences, because like you said, what's associated with the time of year is how mom's feeling, how dad's feeling, or how family's feeling, and all that.
I think what some people forget too when using social media, you only see what someone chose to present to you. So that is not necessarily a snapshot of their entire life. It's not necessarily showing, the highs and the lows, the good and the bad. It's just what they wanted to package and share. And usually that little snapshot is not a complete picture of what their normal daily life looks like.
There's been a whole build up to get there.
Yep. I know my college roommate would joke, we had a similar background growing up. It wasn't Christmas until it was canceled at least 3 times. And so I know there's some people out there that could probably identify with that. And so it's nice to acknowledge that, because what we try to do is not have that for our own children. Not that we're perfect by any means, because we're far from it, but just knowing that the value is in the time you spend with your kids, and making it as positive as an experience as possible, and letting go of some of the extra work that this must be homemade, or we must do this, or we must fit everything in. That's where you can get yourself in a lot of trouble, and it gives you a lot of pressure. Ornella, what are some of your thoughts?
I think that it's definitely very easy to overcommit when it comes to the holidays, especially since it's at the end of the year. It's once a year, pertaining to Christmas and New Year's, but you kind of have a buildup of all year of all the wonderful things that you would like to do during this time of the year. But then when the time of the year does come and it's cold and there's sicknesses and illnesses going around, and you have overcommitted, it can definitely get very stressful, and you start to hate yourself a little bit. And I guess it's something good to keep in mind about not, kind of maybe doing something once a week, or instead of saying, I'm going to do something magical every day, let's just do something that's spread out a little bit to allow for that wiggle room in the middle. And I think kids still do have a really good time with that once a week, when the in-between times are spent connecting and just being home, warm, and just doing things that they enjoy, and resting too as well.
I think that's a good point about overcommitting. I think we all overcommit because it sounds great when the plan comes to your mind, or like when you're invited to do something, but then you realize you've committed to like 5 things, and kind of giving yourself permission to say, it's okay if I have to cancel. Like, it's okay if I say I can't go anymore, because 5 things in one weekend is just a bit too much, so, just giving yourself grace, and taking some things back and saying, maybe not.
The break always feels and seems so long in the beginning, and then once it's going, it's over in a snap too. So I think that's where there's some over idealizing what you can accomplish in such a short amount of time. Many children and adults have sensory issues that may impact them during the holiday gatherings or travels. What are some environmental or situational triggers that could occur? And what are some coping strategies that families can consider and plan for to help their children?
Well, one of the biggest things for me is my family is early dinner eaters. We eat dinner really early, and by the time holidays come, it is a 7 o'clock dinner or even later at sometimes. And so that's always been challenging because we all know hungry kids often lead to kind of hangry kids, especially with the hype of all the sugar and the excitement. So, just understanding how to readjust your schedule for this time, whether that be they're younger and they need different nap times, being okay and giving yourself, again, grace to change the schedule. And that's okay to be proactive. Packing those extra snacks or having a really late lunch instead, those little things. And another big thing, I know it's probably a lot of parents worries, is how your kids respond to presents when they've been let down. Those situational triggers. They have an idea of what they want and all of a sudden they don't get what they want, or they appear ungrateful, and that's something we just can't handle as parents. We're like, oh my gosh, you can't show that side of you. But it's normal, and again, grace is probably my key word today, is giving your kids grace and understanding, they're still learning. But to kind of help with that is do those what if stories in the car ride. What if you receive this? How would you respond? Just giving them those practice scenarios is really beneficial, and turn it into a game.
Amanda, what are your thoughts?
I think it's really important to plan ahead, knowing for your kids and even yourself, so you can be proactive in addressing potential triggers that you may encounter. So Kelsey was saying, as far as the change in dinner time, that's huge for kids. So, okay, do we have an earlier snack or, and then accommodate that, or maybe just prep them a meal separately that keeps them a little bit into routine. The lack of schedule can make kids feel anxious and overwhelmed. Adding to that, the late nights, the travel, excitement, the sugar, the people, the hype, all the things. Holiday gatherings don't align with usual meal times, and the foods are usually unfamiliar. So, if they're not serving chicken nuggets, my kid's not eating it. So planning for those things so you can reduce those meltdowns or upsets. The busy days, so knowing that it's a lot on a kid to travel through all of that. So if we can plan ahead and incorporate comfort items, stuffies, blankets, whatever keeps them comfortable, can help with, the change in the regular routine, and support in those adjustments. And then something else that's really important is the environment. So being aware that the loud noises, the bright lights, flashing, strong smells, different textures of uncomfortable clothing, because, we dress them up in the cutest little dresses that aren't great.
Brand new with the scratchy tags.
Yeah. The perfumes, the overcrowding and physical contact, the unexpected hugs from Aunt Susie that they see once a year. And just knowing that all those little things may seem little, but as they add up, we're preparing our kids for a complete meltdown.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it might not be the meltdown of screaming and tantruming, but the other side of it is just completely hyper, just off the walls, that they're taking all those little things in, and it's just making them extremely hyper. And you're like, oh my gosh, who is this kid? I've not seen this version of him in forever. So it's just understanding that all those things that you just spoke of impact how they're kind of taking in this whole scenario.
Another component addressing this topic too is explaining your plan and your family's needs to other family members. We all have a family member or many that like to jump in. We'll just do this, or I made so and so, this special dish. I'd love for them to try it. And so trying to have that conversation before the moment of, what, I want them to be as happy and as present in this holiday event as possible. I just want to let you know ahead of time that I'm going to pack these certain foods, or they may be eating at a different time. That can also help with that conversation, so it's not in the moment. Feelings hopefully won't get hurt, and they'll know where you're coming from. And the goal is to spend more meaningful time with them.
Yeah, like mentally prep as a mom or
Right.
as an adult. Like, okay, someone might say a judgy comment, you know.
Ornella, what are your thoughts on the topic?
I think those are definitely important things to consider. And as we consider them, we should plan ahead. I think the key word is planning ahead. We should plan ahead to have some strategies to cope when something may not go the way we expect or our children expect for it to go. So just like you guys already mentioned a little, discussing those expectations with your children, especially if they have some sensory issues, to discuss the expectations before the event. So like you said, when you're on the car ride and you're driving somewhere, just to reiterate, you know, if you have any questions, this would be a good time to ask me, or this is, you know, when we're getting ready to eat, this is what we expect. And when you're finished eating, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Another way I think it would be beneficial is practicing social skills with the kids, especially if it's something that they have a weakness in. For example, role playing with how to greet family members in a respectful way, or how to handle situations that might make them nervous. Role playing that a little bit of ahead time might help the children with those sensory issues. Or like finding a quiet spot somewhere. If you're in a home, maybe look ahead of time if there's a spot where if the child comes and pokes at you and taps you and says, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed, it could be like, remember that quiet spot we discussed beforehand? Maybe you can go there and go on that blanket like you said, Amanda, or maybe a nice stuffy or something that will regulate them again. Or calming activities, deep breathing, just little strategies to have handy for the times that things might get a little bit intense.
I think another nice component of all of that planning would be if they are going to take a break, or if there is like you can't miss this, whether it be a family picture or an activity or the cookie decorating or whatever it is, you know, to use that, you know, use of a timer, you know, okay, I'm going to give you 15 or 20 minutes on technology, take a break. But we are going to take that big group family picture when we're done, or we are going to focus on making our Christmas cookies, you know, and I want you to be a part of that. So giving them parameters in which they can take a break, and then letting them know ahead of time what's really important to you or to other family members. All right, let's move forward. Feelings of grief over a recent loss or a trauma response to past adversities can emerge during the holiday season. What can be done to acknowledge those emotions but not let them consume you during the holiday season?
I think, you know, I think people fear sometimes talk specifically to loss. Like, I think people fear talking about people they've lost because they're fearing that they're going to bring up sadness. But in fact, we already feel that sadness as is because we miss that person. However, you know, I think we need to start being okay with talking about that person or a loss that you've experienced of somebody, because it helps bring joy back to that person. And it really kind of unites the family too. You know, it kind of fills that emptiness. And there's some things that you can do. I think I always say, you know, there's one family activity we did, you know, where we had a journal out where everybody kind of wrote a memory or something that's made them smile about that person that we've lost. And then that immediate family was able to keep that journal and then reflect back on it and then have that immediate family dialogue and just have that connection building. Or, you know, I always tell even my students too, like, you have these go-to memories that, yeah, you're sad, but we need to work through that sadness. And what is that go-to memory of that no matter what, when you think about it, you smile. Like, you can't help but smile, and you kind of forget a little bit about that emptiness and you kind of fill yourself back up again. So really kind of coaching family too, of talking about those people that we miss and kind of using them as a unifier.
I know for us, we try to honor family members, friends, pets. We try to get a special ornament that we can have their picture that we put on our tree, and acknowledge them in other ways. And a lot of times when people are dealing with grief and loss, they say quite often, I just don't want their memory to fade. And so it's actually quite the opposite of a lot of times what people think.
Right.
They want them to be remembered. They want people to say their name and to acknowledge them.
I think people worry about saying their name and causing that sadness, but like you said, it's the exact opposite. It brings joy.
Kind of like what you were saying as far as like the ornaments. I think like in my family is something like we've tried to keep the traditions the same because those things were important to, you know, somebody that we had lost, but then we recreate those memories, those traditions by incorporating, it's my mother-in-law, with us in another way. So like Thanksgiving, we always go and get the grave blanket and lay the grave blanket on her, at the cemetery. And then like on Christmas, we all take the kids there. They write a message on the ornament and we decorate the grave blanket with ornaments that day. So we found new ways to like still have her with us and be a part of our traditions, but it's just different than it looked like prior to, you know, the loss.
And I love that idea, especially connecting them back to those holiday traditions, not just remembering them, but incorporating them into the holidays. I think that's a great idea. Are there any other recommendations, Amanda, that you would give to people?
I think a big one is like validating the feelings. So it's normal for those feelings of sadness and grief to feel uneasy during the holidays. So kind of like you guys were saying, like sharing what you're feeling with the people that are around you, because you're not the only one feeling it. And you know, the holidays really bring up those feelings just because it is such a significant loss. So, you know, recognizing that together with each other, scaling back. It's okay to simplify holiday plans and focus on what feels manageable. So if it's a recent loss, maybe it is just like, oh, this year I need to take a step back because it's just too much. And then, you know, seeking out support from a trusted friend or family member who can provide understanding and comfort.
Ornella, what are your thoughts?
I would definitely, those are some very good tips. If I were to add anything, I would say, you know, not to rush healing. Grief and trauma recovery do take time, you know, to be patient with yourself and your family members, and to allow yourself to even grieve. I know during the holidays, we want to make it super magical all the time. We wanted to make it joy. And of course, those are important elements of the holidays. But when there is a loss going on, it's okay to also give yourself time and permission to grieve, to feel both feelings if you're able to. And you know, honor that memory, like you mentioned, build those new traditions, and also allow time for rest. It gets so busy during the holidays that we don't give ourselves time to rest, and it's especially important when we are experiencing loss and grief. Our bodies and our minds do need to rest.
I think you bring up a good point too, because I think it's good for your kids to see you experience all the feelings too, that, you know, everybody grieves. You don't need to pocket it away. So you showing that you're doing things to take care of yourself or to grieve appropriately, I think that's really important for them to see. You're not just putting on a joy front all the time, you know.
Plus, labeling your feelings, talking through all of those emotions, I think are important. Or if something was deflected, if you showed frustration at something, even though that wasn't the root cause, it really helps kids to see you respond the way you do. And if you made a mistake, to acknowledge that and talk them through, I'm really sorry I snapped at you. I was so stressed about, you know, losing so-and-so or this and this happening. And I realized I was taking that out on you.
Right.
And so it's a learning opportunity for our kids to see us process, you know, acknowledge and then do better.
Yeah.
And that's a priceless gift.
Yeah.
Holiday gatherings often create a setting where many family members are together in one place, and often relationship complexities or previous family dynamics can resurface. What are some things people should consider in those situations?
I think quickly, just real simply, is I have to do a lot of mental rehearsal in my brain. Is like, I know Christmas Eve is coming up, and that's a big ordeal in our family. So, and I know there's about 10 additional people showing up this year. So it's all this in my brain that I'm like, okay, I'm going to probably get ready earlier and I'm going to have this out and this out. And then when I get there, I'm going to realize there's not much space for me and to carry all this stuff. So it's like I have to rehearse it in my mind to kind of prep myself. And I think that that's been a really great tool. It seems so simple, but that mental rehearsal kind of helps me deal with like what to expect, or also go through what I could what could be unexpected, like what if this happens? Okay, then I have this backup. So the mental rehearsal, just to kind of help me through it all, has been beneficial.
Amanda, what are some recommendations that you have?
So this is a huge topic that I'm a therapist as well. So around this time of year, this is like all sessions are regarding to like, oh my gosh, I have to see my family. How am I going to handle these situations? What's going to happen? There's this tension. We've had this conflict. My family dynamics growing up were awful, and now I have to spend time with them. I think the most important thing is to recognize that it's okay to prioritize your mental health over family obligations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, simple as that. It's okay to not attend gatherings at all, or to make your visit short if it's too stressful and there's a lot of unresolved conflict that just isn't healthy for you. Having set realistic expectations, accept that you can't control the other person's behaviors, only your reactions to them. Prioritizing those personal boundaries, so establishing clear boundaries about topics. So say you and your mom don't get along very well. So, okay, mom, we're going to exist in the same room, but maybe we don't talk. And just have those boundaries, because it's not the time or place to have those conflicts. And, being aware of, those topics that maybe are off limits, because there's a lot of things that people don't agree on. Focus on the present and try to let go of past grievances during gatherings. So again, that like time in the moment, time and place, it's not time to talk about those things. We're focused on Christmas. We're focused on, spending time as a family, and setting those things aside if it is something that you're able to set aside. Choose your engagement. So spend time with people that you do get along with in the family, and maybe distance yourself from people that you don't. That way you feel supported and you have people around you to, make you feel more comfortable. And then knowing when to take a break. Have an exit plan in case the situation becomes too overwhelming, such as stepping outside or even leaving early.
Ornella, what are your thoughts?
I think, definitely those are, I keep saying definitely, but those are some really good tips about how to prepare ahead of time. But then I was thinking, how about, when you do show up and you do practice those boundaries and you do say no, but conflict comes your way anyway, what are some things, you can do when it does happen in that trajectory? And some things that I think about is if you've already, said no, or if you've already tried to walk away, but someone keeps talking to you, if you notice that you're starting to get tense or anxious, for example, like you're fisting your wrists or your heart rate starts to kind of rise a little bit more, and you can sense in your body that you're starting to get tense, it's okay to walk away from a situation until you feel calm again. For example, you might want to be like, excuse me for a second, I just need to go get some fresh air, or maybe you go to another room until you let your heart rate lower, or you sense your body relaxing a little more. Upon returning, it's okay to let the person know that, hey, that topic that you were trying to discuss with me, it really upsets me, and this is not something I want to talk about when we're together with family, when we're together trying to have a good time with our children. Perhaps we can talk about this at a different time, and then maybe shifting the focus on like a shared interest, give some suggestions. How about we talk about, something that the kids did that they really had fun enjoying, just to shift the conversation to something more positive. And also fostering those positive connections. So try to engage in lighthearted activities or holiday movies, acknowledging or celebrating those, positive aspects of family members, even if they're not perfect. And I think something that can be done that's kind of simple in a way, but maybe not. Either way, it would be to offer empathy and validate feelings. When somebody is telling us something upsetting, a lot of times they just want to be validated in what they're saying, and they want their feelings to be acknowledged. And even if you don't agree with their point of view, just acknowledging how they're feeling at that moment can at times help lower that tension. So it's just saying, hey, I see that you're feeling upset or sad or angry. However, let's talk about this at a different time right now. Let's just go see what the kids are doing, and let's go what's happening on that holiday movie that's on the TV. Strategies like that.
We've been talking a lot about surviving the stress of the holidays, but hopefully, after the challenges of the holidays are navigated, there's time to find enjoyment. What are some things people can do to balance the stress of the holidays?
So this one's really silly, and I realize this, but I think sometimes for me, I need to be in a location that I have no responsibility. So that might be like even driving. I know I can't multitask when I'm driving. I know that I can't clean up. I know that I can't do anything other than just be. And I think sometimes when I'm in the midst of stress, I need to find a place that I can't multitask and I have a responsibility, like, just with one thing. And that might be silly, but I do think that I find myself wanting to take a drive or wanting to even sit in a car or something just to kind of take a break from the environment that I might have to clean or I have to wrap or I have to cook dinner or all the things. So being in a place that I'm like, I can't do anything other than just drive or sit here. So I think that's one of my silly ones. It's not as serious, but it's something that works for me.
I love that example, and I'm a music lover and would pre-kids, pre-family, listen to music every single time I got in the car.
Yep.
As I find myself getting older and having, 3 kiddos at home, 6, 8, and 10, which I'm sure many people can identify with, I find myself driving in complete silence when I'm alone in the car. And it was so out of character for me to do something like that before. But I love that peaceful, quiet time, just focus on the driving. And so I really do identify with that. What are some other strategies?
I think it's important to take a break for yourself. So schedule time in to relax and recharge. The holidays is constantly on the go. So I know for my family, every year, the day after Christmas is a day we don't answer our phones. We don't do anything other than just exist in our house, essentially. Easier for some than others because, like you said, if you're home, you're going to end up cleaning. So I do tend to start organizing. But for me, that's almost like a coping skill to put my life back together and find space and,
Space.
organize. Literally find space. But, it reduces my anxiety to have things where things are supposed to go. So that's just a way that we kind of, reset. And then we can connect with loved ones, prioritize meaningful interactions with family or friends, with a focus on quality time. So not we have to be together because of Christmas, more so let's schedule a lunch and hang out or, do something that you really enjoy. And then practice gratitude. So reflecting on the positive aspects of the season, even the small ones, to shift from stress to joy. So, hey, my kid didn't throw a fit at grandma's house the other day. That was a win. And then simplify what you need. So let go of that perfection and focus on what truly matters.
I know my 2 sisters and we've made it a Christmas tradition to go out to dinner the day after Christmas. And it used to have the husbands or the significant others or the cousins, other family members. Oh, we love that restaurant. We're going to join you. But then it was stress on us, planning, trying to get a bigger table with a difficult reservation. And the last couple of years have gone back and we're doing it again this time. It's just for us 3. Simple. No one else is allowed to come. And it's just 4 or 5 hours with, drive time and the extra coffee or whatever afterwards. But it's time just for us to reconnect. And that has made our holidays and the stress of the holidays so much better. Ornella, what are your thoughts?
That's such a good point. Connecting is so important. At the end of the day, I feel like that's what holidays are all about anyway, when we kind of lose sight of what we're doing all this for, and we're doing it to connect. We want to connect with our loved ones, with our immediate family, our extended family. But sometimes, like we mentioned, those negative feelings and that stress does come out of the craziness of the holidays. So I think it's okay to reach out to family and friends and let them know, hey, I'm kind of feeling kind of down. Can we chat for a bit? Or do you think you can come over for lunch or coffee? And I think reaching out and connecting with people is a nice tool to re-energize yourself. And I think I know self-care is thrown around a lot all the time, but it's so important, especially after a stressful event, to eat well, to replenish our bodies, stay hydrated, resting, recharging, and doing those things that make our body feel energized again, and our mind. Just set aside a couple days to prioritize those self-care and self-help things. And of course, if things are getting particularly overwhelming to the point where it's becoming unmanageable, consider seeking help with a professional as well, like a therapist or a counselor.
Well, I'm so thankful for this time that we had together. I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, most important, Happy New Year. Thank you, Ornella, Amanda, and Kelsey for being here today and sharing your knowledge. We are incredibly grateful to MIT and to Romeo Community Schools for helping us share this information. We will have additional mental health and wellness podcasts about once per month during the school year. Thank you, everybody.
Well, I hope our listeners will take some of the tips our mental health professionals shared with us today and enjoy a restful, joyful, and stress-free holiday season. We will be taking a brief hiatus for the holidays. Look for new episodes in the new year. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.